It's time to be woke. Take off your shades, it helps see through the smoke. Cause the wicked hide behind the cloak. And if you stay in the mist, you gon' be soaked. So listen up, cause this hair of the dog. What's real, what ain't? Is this the fog or smog? Cause there's a difference when you breathe it in. So don't let the corporate media take you for a spin. This that morning show, they put you in the know. So I hope that you ready, cause all we do is go, go, go. Yeah, come get your info, you gon' be like, whoa. Hair of the dog, we bout that, ayy. We in the zone, we out here, yeah. Speeding the fact.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hair of the Dog. I'm Andy Kennedy. It is Friday, and I am supposed to behave today. So I'm not going to go into my normal snarky description of how we act on Friday. I'm going to behave myself. We have an absolutely jam-packed show for you today. It's just filled with wonderful, great things, and we've got too many guests because we've overbooked, and instead of canceling one, we decided we were going to talk faster. So, without further ado, I am going to introduce my lovely and talented co-host, Miss Carrie Barber. Good morning, Carrie. And wait, Carrie.
It's Friday, it's live. Anything can happen. So yeah, good morning. Thank you, Andy, for that. And yeah,
you're muted, said no one ever.
Right. It happens. So thank you for everybody who's tuning in, especially on this Friday. So I'm trying to behave because I know Amber's going to be tuning in. So welcome to Friendship Friday. Let's try that. So if you are watching us for the first time, thank you for tuning in. And we are live, obviously. So we are taking your questions, and you can do that through any of our social media channels, any of our syndicated channels. And good morning to everyone on the KRTD network. Thank you so much for tuning in. So we are going to get right into it because we are double booked today, and it has never happened. So there's so much content we want to get into it. But first, I do want to make a request of everyone who's watching this morning. We are talking today about journalism and particularly censorship and what can be done for journalists. And right now, in this moment, Gaza is being invaded by Israeli forces. So if you are not familiar with what's going on with Gaza, these are people who have absolutely nothing. Very little access to medications, doctors. They can't move. They have very little in the way of housing, no clean water, all of these things. And they are up against the elite military force, the fourth largest in the world. So what is happening and has been happening over the last few days is journalists, particularly in Palestine, are being censored across social media. Their feeds, the things that they are tweeting, the videos, the reports that they've been trying to get out are being removed across all social media platforms. And they did come out with this is YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of them have all said in unison, oh, it was a glitch. It was just a glitch. So what I am asking you to do today is find your journalist in Palestine. You can do a very quick search across whichever social media platform you prefer. Do a search for a journalist and buddy up with them. Every time they post something, every time they post a video, save it to your PC, retweet it, get it out. And the reason for this is journalists, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum or your personal feelings, we are the caretakers of history. We are the ones who take care of making sure that the truth gets out there, unfiltered and without the corporate bias. So this is what you can do today to make sure that all of the information gets out there, that the video, the feeds, the eyewitness accounts, all of these things are still out there because they can't shut us all down. It cannot happen. So please, today, find your buddy in the Palestinian journalism sector and retweet or repost whatever they send out today because it is so, so important. And I cannot stress that enough. So I've already picked my buddy.
It's very important. And if you're referring to this as a conflict, then you may not have all the information that you need, because currently the classic corporate narrative, which is out there the strongest because it has the loudest voice, is making this sound like an equal conflict when it is more conducive to calling this genocide, right? We see that this is really basically just kind of in the way that Americans who are being evicted from their houses, the Palestinians are being evicted from certain places in Gaza. And that's so important for us to hear because we want to hear both sides and we want to hear this unbiased. And we can't get that from the mainstream media. We know that. We can't get it. So if you're not getting all the information, it's, well, maybe number one, you don't know, or number two, it's counter to your narrative. Right? And if you're not allowing that information, what are you afraid of? And so it's important that people make up their own minds about what's going on over there and not have the narrative dictated to them.
That's exactly right, which is unfortunate but timely that we have these two guests with us today that is just... we are so proud and so privileged to host two of my fellow union members in the CWA NewsGuild to talk about this from a U.S. perspective, from global perspective, and then what their personal experiences are. So, without further ado, I am on behalf of Hair of the Dog. I am so pleased to welcome Joe Yerardi and Pratheek. Pratheek, help me. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
You can do it.
Pratheek Rebala.
There you go.
Woo! All right. So,
thank God for small victories.
Right. Yeah. So, just so you know, I did post links to all of this information, and this is my own personal opinion, but both of these gentlemen work at the Center for Public Integrity, which is a badass organization. I love everything that they do. Go check it out. I did post a link. So, we're not necessarily here to talk about your employer unless you want to, but let's talk about union membership from the standpoint of journalism. Why is this important? Joe, you to take this first question?
Sure, of course. And just I'll say I'm here in my personal capacity. I'm not speaking for my employer in any way here. I would say union membership is crucially important for journalists, perhaps now more than ever. Journalism is under attack. It's under attack by politicians who want to discredit honest reporting on their misdeeds. It's under attack by social media giants who have their own interests. It's under attack by nation-state actors who have cyber units and military intelligence operations whose goal is to deliberately sow misinformation and to suppress honest reporting about what's going on in the world. And it's under attack by vast politically motivated dark money trolls who set up fake news websites to push a narrative that is contrary to the truth. And finally, it is under attack just by plain old corporate greed and monopoly, especially in the United States. All of these things have combined right now to make it more necessary than ever that journalists band together, stick together, and fight for honesty and integrity in journalism and fight for ourselves and the communities that we represent.
Okay, well said. Pratheek, is he on point on this? Do you have anything? Because that's a lot. Right, and I'm speaking as an independent journalist, a little baby journalist in the middle of the sea. It's terrifying. So, Pratheek, do you have anything to add to this?
No, I think Joe said it pretty well. I mean, I think corporate greed. I mean, just I don't even have to get me started on Alden Global. So I think Joe said everything that is to say about this.
So what I find interesting is, particularly in the NewsGuild, it's growing in membership. But I remember, and I'm going to call her out, the very nice lady who owned Alternet decided to shut it all down when they started talking about organizing a union at Alternet. And we have a couple of the former journalists at that publication who watch us regularly and provide insight on that. And then, hey, shout out to TYT. They were doing a lot of illegal suppression of union organizing activity at TYT. So what does this look like then in a newsroom, in a publication, whether it's online or in print, when you start organizing? Joe, I know that you were part of the original group at your particular organization. What was that like for you?
Sure. So we organized for a number of reasons. One reason that we organized, and this was now about, 2.5 years ago when we started organizing, was we wanted to address some systemic pay equities that we felt were cropping up in our news organization at the time. We felt that especially women and people of color were not being paid fairly compared to their white and male peers. We had a big issue with that. We wanted greater transparency about the finances of our organization. We wanted to understand what we were doing well financially, what we were doing less well financially. Might there be a chance we would be laid off, right? Journalism is a very precarious field. The finances are often kind of up in the air. So we felt that we were owed a little bit more information than we were getting. And generally, we wanted a little more job security. The fact of the matter is, in any industry in the United States, if you are not a member of the union, you work at will. That means your employer can fire you or lay you off for any reason or for no reason, with the rare exceptions of a few very specific protected categories like race and gender. But even then, it's very hard if you're an individual who feels like you've been fired or discriminated against to find a lawyer or go through the various complex government agencies to try to get that issue redressed. The power of a union, and a union contract specifically, is it is a legally binding document between your employer and you as a member of a union that says you are entitled to things like just cause, which means you can only be fired for a good reason. You can't just be fired because your boss doesn't like you that day or they're mad about something that you did. Guarantees things like raises to keep up with the cost of inflation, set promotions, rules around things like layoffs, notifications of layoffs, severance if you are laid off. You can bargain over things like your health insurance or your retirement accounts. All of these things you have a say in when you're a member of a union. If you're not, it's totally up to your boss. Whatever they want to do goes. So for us, it made all the sense in the world to build a union and to bargain a contract. And, we're pleased that we were able to do so.
So there are 2 points well, I guess let's call them fun facts that people need to be aware of. And from my experience working in corporate and C-suite executives, every time that there was a layoff or something like that, the arbitrary decision went to the frontline manager and maybe one person above them, and they always chose the person that's going to affect them the least. Didn't matter whether you were doing a good job, how much tenure you had, all of those sorts of things. It was all about what's going to affect me, who can I live without? And so union membership actually helps counter that a little bit in your favor. And then the other point, and this is a happy fun fact for everybody in the United States, when we have these protected classes, race, gender, orientation, whatever, those laws don't apply to any organization, company, or otherwise with 15 or less employees. So that's a happy fun fact. I did not know that. When you go out to the Labor Relations Board, they tell you straight off, you're on your own with a small organization like that. And depending on how your corporate entity is structured, your division may actually fall into that category where it doesn't apply. So union membership is the bridging the gap in those protections because it supersedes all of those things. So those are things to be aware of. So Pratheek, you are now a shop steward, is that correct?
I am. And I just wanted to say, one thing that I think people kind of forget is that it's really hard to win these cases. It's really hard to prove that your termination is a result of discrimination of some kind. So I think that's another case where, again, having the support of your colleagues in a formal mechanism is really helpful to sort of make the case to your employer that they should rethink their decision.
That's an excellent point, and I always tell people this. Do you have $60,000 for a retainer? Because even on a slam dunk case, that's about what it's going to cost you. You've got to start with all of that money, the depositions, and then you're up against typically a corporate entity who's got an entire legal team to stall things and wait you out. You will never see your day in court. It just, yeah. So this is why I am a strong advocate of unions. So as a shop steward, what kind of activities are you responsible for in the day-to-day operations and making sure things are running smoothly?
So I think this is specific to each unit, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a bottom-up type of system. So really, your unit decides, and your unit chair decides what kind of job duties or roles you have. But I mean, a lot of it is just talking to members, just making sure that they feel heard. Again, in our shop, a union's a new thing. We're in our first contract right now. So I think it's a big part of that is communicating to members that they do have these protections, that they should feel empowered to sort of express their opinions on management decisions. So a lot of it is communicating with members. Obviously, if there's any potential issues, we have to. It could be anything that ranges from just hearing them out and making their concerns feel validated, all the way up to filing a grievance. Right? At the end of the day, it's just being in their corner and letting them know that they have these protections and that we're there and that we're going to fight for them when it comes to that. So I think it's a big psychological shift, right? Where we traditionally think of everyone to themselves and sort of this mentality, and it's sort of fostering that community, right? And it's an ongoing process. And yeah, I mean, especially now with everyone being remote, it's much harder to do because you don't. There's very little sense of community that you can build remotely. So definitely, that's a huge part of that. I mean, that is outside of other sort of duties, a contract enforcement, making sure that the management is sticking to the contract, they're giving us the information that they're supposed to give. These are all generally, I think, the duties of the union officers. I think every unit is different, right? And I think some folks, for example, have stewards that specifically focus on pay equity or DEI, so diversity, equity, inclusion. So I think it really depends. And at the end of the day, it's up to the members to determine what their offices are supposed to be doing. So in our case, we circulated job descriptions ahead of time and asked folks to express their opinions, ask them, are there other positions you'd like to see? Because again, there is no rule book here in terms of how a unit is run. So it's at the end of the day, it's just making sure that members get what they want or what they
You mentioned that sense of community, and that's kind of amazing when we're looking at the landscape of journalism today. And in my head, I keep going back to one of the famous cases that came out with Glenn Greenwald leaving the organization that he represented because he had a fundamental disagreement with editors. So in a union contract, it's typically the nuts and bolts of the employment contract. Do you guys extend it all to the way that the business operates? Like if you have editors in a newsroom who are, we're not going to talk about the Biden administration, nothing negative, which is counter to the entire journalism ethics. Is there something in the union contract or something in your organization where you can push back on that a little bit?
I think so. I mean, again, I don't know too many details or specifics of this case, but I think generally speaking, the biggest protection that, for example, our contract offers is when you fundamentally disagree with a story, you can pull your name from it, right? And I think that's a big, in our industry, we have a very unique position where all our work product has our name attached to it for all of eternity. So I think that's definitely one case where, again, if you're a reporter who feels like something that you're being asked to do is counter to your opinion, I think there's the most basic thing the contract can provide is an ability, is a channel, right? A channel for you to raise your opinions without being retaliated against. But outside of that, the very least is to make sure that your name is not associated with the work product that you do not agree with.
And one other important thing in a similar vein, since, you're talking about sensitive reporting on the federal government, for example, in our contract, we do have protections surrounding the legal rights of journalists to protect their sources and to refuse to hand over their sources in response to subpoenas or other summonses from judges and courts. And we think that's crucially important, right? I mean, if someone comes to you, potentially, they could really be putting their freedom or even their life on the line. And we want to be sure that we treat that with the seriousness that it deserves. No good reporter will give up their source like that. And we have protections in our contract to ensure that our employer can't compel us, basically, to give up that source. So that's also something that we fought for in there.
Right. And I think the other thing is that your employer can't leave you alone, right? They can't leave you alone to fight the DOJ on a subpoena. So that's another, like you said, legal costs are very real. And so I think that's another big protection, is ensuring that your employer is behind you. And again, I want to reiterate, the contract is sort of the legal piece of it, right? But that's not necessarily all of it. The idea, again, is that if there is something the contract doesn't address, but the union feels strongly about and the members feel strongly about, it gives a vehicle for them to do actions. It could be everything from everyone changing their Slack status to express their discontent to management to, depending on the contract provisions, like stopping work for a day or all the way up to signing open letters. And so I think the idea, again, is the contract is a legal piece of it. However, it also provides a vehicle for all your members to band together and say, we don't agree with this.
There's no such thing as an illegal strike. There are only unsuccessful strikes.
That's certainly true. And that goes, Andy, to a great point of kind of what Pratheek was saying, which is really, the power of the NewsGuild and the power of unions generally and the entire labor movement throughout all of history, and certainly now as well, is less so in the contracts that you win and the legal protections in those. Those are very important and good tools to have. But ultimately, the most powerful weapon that we have in the face of corporate power or government power, money, all of those things, is our numbers, our solidarity, and our unity. And what unions allow working people to do is to band together and in some form of to equalize that power relationship to some extent. And that's really the most important thing that unions offer journalists and any workers.
Absolutely. And if you'll indulge me for a second, Gary, my union activity through my 30 years of unionism is in the automotive industry as an electrician. And so I started, became a union member in 1987, when unions were a lot stronger, and the slow degradation of union rights and capital's dismantling of the entire union system, including the misinformation campaign from capital to try to vilify unions in normal society. We see now that union membership is at an all-time low, and that's by design. Right? It's absolutely. When you look back through time and you see at a time in the 70s when we saw the two aspects of the national wealth, capital and labor, were both rising in terms of wealth at the same time. And at a very specific time when this all started to happen, is that capital continued gaining their wealth, and basically labor flatlined. And that was all a campaign to defang unions, right? People don't realize that all of the things that you have as a protection in the worst workplace are because of unions, including things like the 40-hour work week, right? The ability to refuse unsafe work. All of those things, if it wasn't for unions, they wouldn't be in place. We have to be, and that's across the board in every single aspect of society. Any worker right? That's a very important point to make.
And Andy, I just want to, since if you indulge me in a little history, just a few years before you first joined in 1981, right? Reagan's very famous fired all the air traffic controllers. And I think there's business research in this about how that specifically emboldened anti-union, union-busting activity, because someone all the way at that high level could do such a public set of union-busting activity and get away with it, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's all about the narrative, right? If you can control the narrative, you can, and I remember very specifically it attacks on, those lazy union members, they get paid this huge amount of money and they don't do anything, right? And those were coming from capital. Right, and it was a way to divide, and we see that in society. Right, the current class war that we have, it's all part and parcel with capital's basic overtaking of the society. Right, and it's all important. This is why it's so important. And a quick example: if you think that it's no longer important to be in a union, that it doesn't matter because unions have no power, right? When the pandemic started and everyone, because of the fear of the unknown, the governments basically shut everything down because they were so afraid of what was happening. Well, in the United States, because of the lack of protections of workers, everybody was getting laid off. Well, Sarah Nelson, who is the president of the airline industry workers, she started talks with the corporations, with the large airlines, and basically got protections for them through the entire pandemic, that they received their normal pay while doing nothing to protect those workers, right? And that's just because she knew how to do it. But that's a huge thing, because people say, well, we don't have this or we don't have that, and we can't, well, she stepped in and saved the people that worked in that industry. And that's a huge thing. The unions still have power. If you can take your labor away in terms of organizing, then you're handcuffing capital. And that's another huge point, right? Sorry, I've kind of gone on a little.
It's okay. It's a union conversation. And obviously, we could and should talk about this for hours. And we didn't even get to the PRO Act, which is so important. And I know that CWA in particular and CWA NewsGuild is really pushing that. So, guys, would you be willing to come back and spend maybe another morning with us and talk about the PRO Act? Because there's another piece of this, Pratheek, you brought it up. It's a sense of community. In my small little local, we're having conversations about journalism and reframing the conversation around specific things, particularly when we're talking about Black Lives Matter and police brutality, changing the words that we use as journalists. And that has such power when it comes to the public narrative. And we see this, when we open the story with Palestine, and using the legitimate word apartheid applied appropriately in telling these stories. So, Joe, Pratheek, thank you so much. And this has not been nearly enough time. Joe, please, go ahead.
Sure. Before I go, I really would be remiss if I didn't put out one call to action for your viewers. Right now, throughout the country, there is an attempt by a vulture capital hedge fund to take over one of the largest newspaper chains in the country, Tribune Publishing, Alden Global Capital, which is a vulture hedge fund that comes in, buys businesses, and then absolutely guts them, lays off all the workers, destroys them, extracts whatever value they can, and then leaves the company to die. Is very close to purchasing Tribune Publishing, one of the largest paper change in the country. The NewsGuild is fighting very hard against this all over the country. There's an effort to stop this consolidation and to find local owners for these newspapers who will invest in journalism for their communities, invest in good, honest reporting, and save these papers. So I would encourage all of your viewers and all of your listeners to go to savethenews.org to see how they can get involved in this campaign. Savethenews.org. You can also just Google NewsGuild Tribune, and that'll come up as well. The vote by the shareholders of the company is coming up within days, so there's a lot of rallies planned this weekend, a lot of letter writing campaigns going on right now to convince the shareholders of Tribune to vote against the takeover by this awful hedge fund. So I'd encourage everyone, savethenews.org, save local journalism.
Perfect. This is perfect. And if you're watching right now, we've already posted that link in the chat. So you should have that. And we will post it again. Thank you, Joe. That is perfect. And yeah, we will definitely keep up with that. So Fred Eichner, where are you? You already own a radio station in Chicago. Maybe you need a newspaper. So you live there. Why not? Why not? So
how much money do you have in your pocket, Carrie?
Nothing. I got nothing.
Oh.
I'm an independent journalist. So I got nothing.
Hair of the Dog GoFundMe.
Oh, there we could do a publicly owned Tribune. Wouldn't that be nice?
Run by unions.
Right, exactly. And I have funny stories about the Trib. So yeah, we'll definitely do it. So thank you, Joe. Thank you, Pratheek. I did it. I just did it. Pratheek. I warned him I was going to mess it up. Still heavily medicated. So thank you guys so much for joining us this morning. And we would absolutely love to have you back. We have so much to talk about. Maybe we can have a happy celebration about the Trib not going to a vulture capitalist. So appreciate that.
Let's hope so. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks. So now we have a couple of events that we really want to, it's Friday. So what are you doing this weekend? We have a couple of events that we want to highlight, particularly around the country. So I know there's one coming up in Chicago for Medicare for All, a rally, and that is with Our Revolution and a couple other groups. I think the the Nurses Union is hosting that one in Chicago. But if you happen to be in Florida, particularly in the Jacksonville, Tallahassee area, Andy, this is the first graphic. This is when we talked to Rome earlier in the week, he has this huge bigly event. This is part of his tour for the poor. He is crossing the country doing community outreach and conversations, just rational conversations with people who are experiencing housing insecurity, homelessness, or just in general need. And he is actually doing the face-to-face conversations about how we work together in solidarity. So that is coming up Saturday, 3 to 6. And all that information's there. Then there's one that's today. If you happen to be in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, any of those areas, this is a real quick trip for you. And this is quite literally going to be a historic event and a historic moment. So earlier we had the national leadership of the new African Black Panther Party, the White Panther Party, and the new Latin Kings. So they have a huge announcement coming up today at noon. So that's out there. And then without further ado, we also have this huge, big event coming up on May 22nd. And we put out promos and ads and we've talked about it, but that was not enough because something big is coming. So with that, we are so fortunate to have the Executive Director of KRTD Media, who is going to be joining us. Shane, are you here? There he is. Yay. Okay, so we have Shane Coughlin, who is the Executive Director of KRTD Media, who is here personally to talk about some really big events that have come up around this one showcase. So Shane, thank you so much for getting up early and joining us this morning.
Of course.
Thank you.
So on May 22nd, KRTD Media is doing something called the U.S. Solution Summit. This is very different from the last event the KRTD put on, which was the anti-corruption panel, which you also participated in. And the purpose of that event was to talk about the problems. The purpose of this event is to talk about the solutions rather than talk about more problems. We have so many prominent speakers. We have, Carrie's going to be there in panel 1 with Nathan Klein and Aiden Hill. Then we have Steph Zamorano, Madeline Hoffman, Jeff Carr. We got Shahid Buttar, Dan Whitfield, Brent Welder. Yesterday, we just announced Howie Hawkins is going to be appearing. We got Mark Charles, Christina Tobin from Free and Equal. And then we got the online news kind of groups. We got Frank Analysis, Pasta Jardula, Kit Cabello, Daniel Luker, Fiorella Isabel, Justin Jackson, Ron Placone, Graham Elwood, and Jimmy Dore.
What? Jimmy Dore?
Yeah, we just announced Jimmy Dore a couple days ago.
Okay, so here's my thought. Jimmy Dore, love him or hate him, I think that he is he is able to initiate that kind of response, and he has such a huge following. That is power of influence. So whether you love him or hate him, people are still watching him, either in their loathing or celebration. That's huge to have a figure like Jimmy Dore. So I just got to say, KRTD is kicking ass. So how are you able to put this together? Because you're right. I participated in one of the panels, and the people that I was surrounded by, I mean, I was a little intimidated. Like, oh, okay, these are some high profile folks. And you did it yet again with the Solution Summit. So what are you guys doing over there?
So what KRTD started about 9 months ago. What I did when I started KRTD was I got to work. I started messaging all these people. I started building relationships. Everything now is relationship marketing. You can't do anything without relationship marketing. You need to have relationships with these people. You can't just start out with no relationship and ask them to come. But what you can do is you can build on that. So I invite Steph Zamorano on for an interview. She says, yes, I get that interview. You build off that interview. You say, all right, who wants to be on the show that Steph was just on? I do. Everybody will say. And then with the Solution Summit, it's the same thing. I started off with Steph. I started off with Madeline. I start off with you, and then people like Shahid. And then I go to people and say, you know who's going to be there? Here's a couple of people who are going to be there. You want to be there? And then automatically you say yes. Then I go to the next person. And you can do this over and over again. It's like a snowball.
So this is interesting because we are of the opinion here that we support independent journalists, right? And so we do a lot with people who are maybe a little inexperienced but had something worthwhile to say. Are you actually saying, Shane, that people won't be on a show unless there's a big name on it?
I'm not necessarily saying that. Steph came on when KRTD was at like 30 subs. So it happens, but I'm saying for a summit like this, you do need to entice people to want to participate. And that's what we were able to do.
I think it's very commendable, absolutely very commendable. And particularly if you have not already signed up at usSolutionSummits.com, usSolutionSummit.com, to get some of the news and information. I think the lineup, particularly like I'm looking at the lineup that I'm at for the independents and the third party, all of these alternatives in the election cycle. It's really a powerhouse group. And then to come with solutions, like, for example, I'm going to be talking about HR1, and every time I see corporate media touting the benefits of HR1, I'm always in the background going, no, it's not. That is not what it does. So a solution summit like this, actually, you're bringing the credible information, the full picture, as Andy and I were talking about, and you're getting it from not just big names, but people who are in the know, which is so valuable, so valuable.
And the other thing is, and this is, to me, a really important point, is that the one critique of the left, the progressive left, is that we are unorganized, right? Is that we don't have a specific direction, unlike the other two corporate entities in political game in the United States. What we need to do is we need to interlink our channels so that one person's audience is another person's audience, because you have your group, our group, you have Jimmy's group, you have Graham's group, you have all of Hardlands Media. They all have their audiences, but the fact that we can get a word out to all of them interconnectedly is what we need to do, because we can't rely on the platforms that we use because they're corporately owned and they're stifling us, right? If you can get a large enough audience that shares content, then that's a huge game changer for us, because our biggest problem is trying to get what we see out into the mainstream because we're being so stifled.
Definitely. And this is actually going to just do just that. This is not only being streamed to KRTD's properties. This is being streamed to Hard Lens's properties. This is being streamed to the Combo Couch's properties. This is being streamed to Frank Analysis's properties. I think this is streamed to your properties as well. And in addition to that, it's going to be on multiple platforms. It's going to be on platforms like Odyssey and things that are not YouTube. So.
Oh, absolutely. And, getting back to the union conversation, this is one of the things that I have been pushing with my local, quietly, I'm still the new kid, but extending those protections to independent journalism, like in particular KRTD, you've got an entire group of journalists, not only on your publications, but I know that you're getting ready to roll out written content and things like that. Having those protections for us from a union perspective in a situation where we don't necessarily operate under a solid union contract, right? So what we're doing with our own network, like I may not always agree with the gray zone or status quo, but I am supportive of them because I recognize solidarity in all of this, and that is so important. And Shane, I opened with the broadcast I did with you where we got labeled QAnon.
Oh,
right?
yes.
So, yeah, it's amazing.
QAnon for criticizing Biden from the left.
It wasn't even criticizing. We were just presenting the information about his donors. Here's what the FEC report says, and that was all it took. So amazing. So I see the value in what you're doing, not just from a content standpoint with the U.S. Solutions Summit, but from this journalism solidarity piece, because I can see that solid wall in the corporate media starting to crumble. And it is my great hope that the work that we're doing on the independent media space, left, right, whatever, that the credible reporting will rise to the top, right? So we can fill that niche.
Definitely. And something we forgot to mention is Andy's going to be one of the hosts at the summit.
Nobody forgets Andy.
Well, the thing that I wanted to talk to you, Shane, about is I'm a little bit perturbed that specifically that the one panel that I'm going to be hosting has a member of that panel who singularly has the most mispronounced first name in the history of American politics, right? Thanks a lot, buddy. Appreciate it.
Hey, I see.
But Andy knows how to pronounce it. Who is it?
Shahed
Buttar.
That's right. Well, and I'm really looking forward to sharing that, that saying that we came up with it back when we were platformed by another name when we interviewed him, when he said, and quote, if I had a nickel for every time somebody mispronounced my name, I'd be as rich as Nancy Pelosi.
That was hilarious. So one question you got to ask Shahid is he going to run again? You got to get that in there.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming.
Awesome.
Probably will.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to talking to both those gentlemen because I think that they both have an amazing story to tell.
Oh,
and they're very they're very specifically similar in their own policy positions, but the way that they've entered into U.S. politics couldn't have been more diametrically different. Right. And I think that that's going to be an interesting critique of both gentlemen. So I'm looking forward to it.
Third person just got added to your panel. I think before it was Shahid and Dan. Now it's Shahid, Dan, and Brent Welder.
Oh, very
nice. See, if you're not already signed up, you are going to miss all of this great information. So Shane, this is running all afternoon into the evening, right? This is like a big deal.
This is from 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific until about 9:10 Eastern, whatever, Pacific. I am bad at time zones.
Yeah, it's okay. We struggle here too. So for those of you who are maybe, doing nothing or no, this is important. At 4 o'clock Eastern, I'm going to be on the first panel. So you got to tune into that one. Absolutely.
Right. And I believe my panel is number 3. So okay. We're getting us off to a great start. I like to say, Shay, that the U.S. Solutions Summit is going to be amazing, but the virtual after party, I'm really seriously considering getting into a solution of a different kind.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There's a virtual after party, but it's not for the viewers, not for you guys.
That's right. In Canada, we haven't been nearly vaccinated enough, so there might be a different kind of shot going on afterwards. I'll just say that.
Right. What happens at the virtual after party stays at the virtual after party.
Yes. The after party will not be televised.
No, but tune in the following Monday and we'll dish all the tea. Absolutely.
The other thing I wanted to mention about the summit is there's going to be a live performer there to between each panel. We hired an independent musical musician. I was going to say we hired an independent musician. Her name is Lily Rose. She does a bunch of covers. She does her own songs, and she's going to be doing a 10-minute musical intermission between each panel. So a little bit of entertainment for you guys.
And if you need she is absolutely amazing. This is a wonderful singer and guitar player. I've heard her stuff before, and I've seen her when she actually was involved a couple of times with Shahid in his broadcast while he was running. So they're in for a treat. Absolutely.
Right. So come for the content, stay for the rose. It sounds like an amazing event here. So, Shane, so I do have a follow-up question on KRTD. So for anyone who is, for whatever reason, not familiar with KRTD's work, you guys have already, we're on your network in the morning because we're crazy enough to do a morning show. Or we're old, the Blue Hair Special. We get up early. But you have a bunch of other shows and programs that run throughout the course of the day through the week. So do you want to talk about some of those too?
Sure. So we have KRTD News, which is every Friday. You co-host one of the Fridays. We got Madeline Hoffman co-host one, Joe Evans co-host one, Judith Gottsfeld. You got bunch of, actually, if you look at it, it's a bunch of former candidates co-host the show with me every Friday. And that's really or sometimes current. So we got the news show, and that goes into covering news. The host may not always agree, but it really gets into the heart of all the issues. Like for later today, the news show is going to be on. We're going to be talking a lot about Israel, Palestine, and some of Andrew Yang's comments. So.
Okay, so for those of you who have not watched the first Fridays with Shane and I, we have this ongoing kind of gentle person's bet over Andrew Yang. I am loath to see him propped up so highly in the New York mayoral race. Shane you're still holding out that he's gonna hold that top spot, right?
He's lost my support, but I still think he's holding the top spot.
Come on, New York. Come on. And I keep saying that we had Rahm Emanuel in Chicago. Let us be the lesson for you there. We did that. It was terrible. We have lasting effects. Now we've got another neoliberal in Chicago. New York, come on.
Andrew Yang's not a liberal. He's a he's more like a Republican, but
Hardly. No, he is a full-on neoliberal. He is his own brand. He takes pieces of other political ideas for his own personal use to profit from them. That is who he is. He's like anybody who played D&D. The gelatinous cube. He's the political gelatinous cube.
Yeah, I got to side with Carrie on this one. I was hoping, when he first broke on the scene, that he lasted as long as green ketchup.
So, we got a couple of other shows. We have a fun show called Meet the YouTuber. We bring on content creators. A lot of times the smaller ones, we want to give them a chance to help them grow their channels. And we have a bigger YouTuber who hosts that show, and she'll help them out by having them on. So they usually gain some subscribers after coming onto that. We have a show called the International Workers Movement Podcast. That's more, our network does not have a particular ideology. That's a communist show. So we have that. Mm-hmm. And that's with the Falcone General, literally.
Who is adorable. If you haven't tuned in to watch, you got to watch Falcone. So he pops in every once in a while. And just real quick, okay, so everybody who's weighing in on the chat, I'm glad that you're entertaining yourselves, and I appreciate that, because we were so busy today, we didn't get to a lot of it. But I just want to do real quick, good morning to Mike. Thank you for posting the link about the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee's PDF guide. That is there. He also has a really nice snarky comment about Chank is a phallus with ears and a bad haircut. Kind of agree. Connie John, he's weighing in on Free Palestine, and it's a bloodbath. And yeah, absolutely. Connie John, please join with me. Adopt your journalist buddy in Palestine and get their word out. Amber is always here. Hi, Amber. Hello, my lovelies. And she says that Andy is unforgettable. So so good morning to
like a bad rash.
Exactly. So also good morning to a new viewer. Welcome. This is Zidan the Bangladeshi. So good morning to you. So we're almost out of time here, Shane. So do you want to wrap up with a summation of what people need to know about the U.S. Solution Summit?
I want to do that, but I want to tease our new show really quickly.
Go for it. So
we just picked up a new show. It's another syndication style show like the one we have with you guys. We just picked up Joe Firestone. So he does his 2-hour show about 4 times a week. This guy is 82 years old, but you can't tell he's 82 years old unless you look at him. He does a show for 3 hours like every night at 9 o'clock. And he talks about MMT. He talks about all these important issues. So
yeah, and we haven't been invited on a show yet. So you go back and you tell Joe that I said. No, he's a really good guy. So.
He is, and he's quite knowledgeable about MMT, and another important voice to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. So Shane, you guys are all doing tremendous work over at KRTD. This is why we are so proud to have an affiliation with you. And it is my hope that KRTD replaces an MSNBC, a Fox, all of this sort of thing. So just tremendous work, and thank you for including us in the lineup for the U.S. Solution Summit. So I hope that we do you proud. I know we'll do you proud. So it'll be great. So anyone else who has not already signed up for the USSolutionSummit.com, please go do that. What are you waiting for? It's like next week. Come on. get it together. So absolutely. So thank you, Shane. And I know you've got a busy day ahead of you to get ready for your broadcast. And that's 4 p.m. Eastern?
6 p.m. Eastern.
I'm on it and I forgot. 6 p.m. Eastern.
Damn you, time zones.
Yes, it's so bad, so bad. So 6 p.m. Eastern, tune in to KRTD this evening and you will see Shane on one of his Friday broadcasts and see if you can't get him to, maybe drop Yang altogether. So, all right, thank you so much, Shane. We appreciate it.
Of course.
So, all right, Andy, this has been like a marathon of, wow, this was a tough Friday. Usually we're kind of casual, but we're living up to our Friendship Friday. Thanks, Amber.
Well, plus, it's okay because we do have 2 days off. So, it's kind of like the closer that has to go in for 2 innings instead of 1, right? Today's a day. The next 2 days are a day off, so leave it on the field. Right?
Right. What's funny about this? It's a weekend for Andy, not for me, because I'm working on stories and guests for Monday. So Monday, we will be talking about money on Monday. Monday. In particular, this great transfer of wealth that's happening. So from us little plebeians, it's the eviction crisis, and those of you who own property, you're about to lose your rental properties too. And then on the top side, Wall Street just got this huge infusion of, where the hell did that money come from, Andy? It was almost $1 billion. No, it was almost $1 trillion. I'm still trying to get the numbers together.
Well, I'll just say as a teaser that the Fed really cares about Wall Street.
That's exactly right. Good job. So tune in Monday and we will cover all of that. And right now I'm working on getting somebody who's far more knowledgeable than I am about the Fed. So hey, Peter Griffin, thank you so much for watching us on Rome Bathea's channel. So good morning to you. So all right, that's it. That's all we got. This is the end of our Friday show. Tune in Monday and please have a safe and happy weekend.
Yes, behave yourselves out there, for gosh sakes. Thank you so much, Gary. And enjoy your weekend, but be alert and ready Monday morning, because we're talking money. Take care.
We about that, ayy. Bringing the song, we out here, yeah. Spitting the facts, how it's supposed to be. Hair of the dog, we keeping it G.